Like, exactly. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello again. I'm going to talk in English. I hope that's okay. And I'm going to take this off, otherwise I hear myself twice. Thank you, of course, to the organizers, to Passivhaus Portugal, for inviting me again. I was here last year, and I was very happy to come back. And I'm going to, as Margarida said, talk about social housing around the world. I have examples from around the world. I didn't put Passivhaus in there. Of course, it's Passivhaus projects, but I kind of, had the wish to have Passivhaus be not seen as an add-on, but like just the norm at some point, right? All right, just a little overview. I'm trying to be quick. I know we want to get to the questions as well. What I used as a basis here is as a working group that the Passivhaus Institute. So Margarida mentioned I work for the International Passivhaus Association, which is part of the Passivhaus Institute in Germany. So a working group that the Passivhaus Institute led together with partners. That is about a certain project. So there will be one project from Austria actually in the beginning. But I think the findings there are very applicable to other projects as well. And then I'm going to go over into the examples, and hopefully we have time for some questions after. So this is the name of the working group. You can read here. Multi-story social housing, cost-efficient and energy-efficient, not mutually exclusive. Before, just a little reminder, these things are available on Passipedia, the Passivhaus knowledge database. I hope you all know about it. If not, please check it out. There's a lot of free stuff on there, and then for all the members of Passivhaus Portugal, you can access the more in-depth articles as well automatically. So just a reminder, this is the QR code to the website. And this is the case study I was talking about. So this is in Austria. I know we're in Portugal, but as I said, I think the findings are transferable in some cases. And then we can also talk about what could be done in Portugal later, maybe. So the basic premise here is that, in social housing projects, even more than maybe the regular projects, costs are looked at very closely. If you're trying to get a funding of some kind, right, usually you have to stick to cost limits to get that funding. And so in this case, maybe there's even more of a focus, although I would also argue that everyone would like to build cost efficiently, right? This is not just in social housing projects, but even more here. And when they started this research group, right, so energy efficiency was very much seen as an add-on, which of course I disagree with. I think it's necessary, but was seen as an add-on and kind of the main cost driver in a lot of discussions. And also some actually questioned the usefulness of the energy efficiency methods. And then another problem that they encountered in the working group was that the investments are barely looked at with the whole life cycle in mind. So that's something that was just mentioned also, right? That the life cycle is important and also very much gives you a different outcome if you keep that in mind. And often these discussions, and I know I talked to someone yesterday here at the conference, are very emotional, and people have very formed opinions that are sometimes not really based on actual data, but rather just the ideas one has, right? So this is something they try to tackle in that project as well, by giving actual data. In regards to the data, this is a project that was in progress for a long time. It started from the beginning, from the planning phase, and then went into monitoring. That also means that the costs here represent that time. It's not an old study, but still, it was before the explosions in prices we see in construction in the recent years. So I just wanted to make that clear again, right? So I think very much these principles still apply, while the costs may have changed a bit. So just keep that in mind. Just a quick overview of the project. So there were 20 plus units. They were supposed to be built to the Passivhaus standard, but also economically viable, right? Very, very much part of it to keep the optimization of both in mind. That's the next point here, the energy efficiency and the profitability over the whole life cycle, very important. And then it was also about quantifying what actually the energy efficiency measures cost in these cases, or in this specific case. And then the monitoring, which is also nice to have really like data and kind of, be able to show like this is what came out and then measure it with what you expect. So this is very powerful, I think. The monitoring part is something that's, hard to do sometimes. It's technical, extra effort, but very important, I think. Again, the prices from that time. But nevertheless, I wanted to show you. So they calculated beforehand 30,000 examples with exhaust air systems. There's also MVHR systems that are not shown in this graphic. These are just the blue ones. And you can see here on the horizontal line, you have the primary energy usage and then the cost on the vertical line. And what's interesting here is you have the blue line, which represents the cost limit for that specific funding, the tender. And what you can see here is that while there is an increase in the cost per square meter here for energy efficiency measures, or for going more towards the energy efficient side, I should say. They are very much 94% of the calculated examples they did beforehand were below this threshold that was put out by Halbach, the community there. And in the case with heat recovery, it's even more, so 99%. That's not shown again. But also interesting here, if you go and look, the national plan is way higher in 2021 than what was actually calculated for this project. So that's something to keep in mind, that we can shoot for a little higher, higher goals maybe in the national plans as well. And then speaking about life cycle costs, so these are the costs that were calculated here, and here you have the MVHR systems in red and the exhaust air systems in blue. And yeah, what was interesting here is that they fall to low primary energy values, and they do increase for very efficient variants, but actually not that much. And when you look at the cost optimum, you kind of end up at this like 75 to 95 kilowatt hours per square meter ground floor area. And then, passive house usually comes out to 70 to 80. So actually, cool, it fits quite well. Something that we knew, I think, but wanted to show here. And also interesting, it's half of the Austrian limit of the time, so a lot better than what the policy shoots for. And when you include the subsidies in this, the cost optimum even moves more towards the energy efficient side. And then something that we heard about as well in the presentation before, and that's something that I put here as a bonus, which I don't think it is, but is the thermal comfort and air quality. So people in social housing specifically can struggle with energy poverty, we call it. So having a very comfortable and high air quality house while keeping the costs for the tenants low, especially in social housing. Again, you can agree, you kind of argue that we all like low utility bills, right? It's not just in social housing, but specifically in social housing that makes a big difference to give people more money into their pockets again, right? So here I think also the energy efficiency, the passive house standard is a great fit because of that. Here you can see a statistic. So this is not applicable to Portugal, I know, but it shows the coldest week in winter and how it performed. I don't have this graph for the hot summer. That was also in 2018. They called it the summer of the century. Looking at forecasts, I don't think it will be the summer of the century, probably. But yeah, it also performed very well there. And you see some dips here. Just want to explain those really quickly. These were when people were using opening the windows. So user behavior, right? That's something we heard also in the little greeting from Lloyd Alter and Mr. York. I blank on the first name. So user behavior, users need to know how to navigate this. The good news, though, is that if you look at these dips, they rise very quickly again. So it goes back to a comfortable temperature very quickly. And then also, I'm from the Passive House Institute, so of course we also want to highlight the Passive House Planning Package, PHPP, as a calculation tool, because we think it's very important and we're trying to get it acknowledged in different circumstances and social housing as well. So here in this research group, kind of what you can see is that the predicted consumption in the PHPP came out to be very close to what actually was then monitored later, right? So that's a great success. There's even like some things here, like the common use electricity, elevator and stuff, and the underground parking that were not included in the calculation, and still, actually, it's a little lower than was calculated. I guess you can say the PHPP is a little conservative, pessimistic. I guess it's a German tool. We're not known for being optimists, I guess. Yeah, so that's also good news, and that's why we're trying to, also have PHP accepted in tender processes, for example. So, for example, this is a little discourse, not necessarily social housing, but Scotland, if you heard about it, had committed a year ago, or yeah, more or less, to only build social passive houses, not social housing, passive houses for their building stock, the new builds first, and then eventually also Enerfit. And that's something that our colleagues at the Passivhaus Trust, the affiliates, right, are trying to also fight for. That first of all, no matter what comes out, there's a lot of cooks stirring in the pot, but whatever comes out, that the Passivhaus standard is automatically acknowledged, and ideally that PHPP would also be acknowledged as a calculation tool to comply with the Scottish standard, right? Okay. Yeah, so these are, and again, construction costs from back then, but still interesting. So these are the construction costs in that time. And the red one here is the study we look at. So you see it's very much below the average, which is the green line. It can very much compete with other, these are non-commercial housing projects so in the region, can very much compete with the other buildings. And additionally, it has the comfort and the air quality that I was talking about before. So I think studies like these can be used very well to make a point that's actually based on data as well. And back then, at least, the additional costs for energy efficiency came out to be actually very low, 3 to 6% they calculated here. Yeah. All right, so next part, and I'm going to move quickly. I have a couple of examples. I'm not going to go into technical details. I do include the PHPP calculations where I can, but just so you have a little overview. This is in Darmstadt, home of the institute, so I had to include it. A social housing project called Passive Social Plus, I have to say. I thought it was interesting because that's a very common typology. So here you can also see how social housing can fit into the circumstances you have in the country. Through the post-World War II history, Germany has a lot of military barracks that are now empty, especially my region. So basically what happens there, they're empty, not used, so they get retrofitted. And there we try to, also say, hey, the Enerfit standard for retrofits, passive house for retrofits can be a very good fit. And it's already, buildings that exist and are just empty otherwise. So a lot of them are getting actually used for social housing. They all come, with ventilation system, heat recovery in this case, and have energy efficient appliances and lighting. It's of course a nice thing too. And what's also cool, the old buildings, they were new and old. The old buildings actually use the old radiators, put them into the system, while the new one has a air supply heating. Then this is one that's very cool in the UK, I think. It's called Goldsmith Street. And it is, fairly recent. Not that recent, I guess, but still, it's a very cool project. It's 100% social housing, so very, very nice. It also, has a kind of block pattern that fits into the environment. I mean, you can skip back here. I don't know if I can actually. There you go. And has these communal gardens, which we'll see again in the next project. But something, with social housing, you have a lot of people living in a closer space, so I think that's very nice. That's also the social aspect that we heard about, is to bring kind of a communal point into the project as well, especially in social housing. And yeah, it also has won the Sterling Prize in the UK, which we were of course very proud that a passive house project gets mentioned in such a prestigious award. And it was the UK's largest certified scheme back in 2019 when it was opened. Another cool project, Sendero Verde in New York City. Very impressive building. It was also at the time the highest certified passive house. I'm not sure if it still is, but I think so. Also a social housing project, also part of a tender program from the city. So in this case, it was called Sustain NYC. You again have the collaboration here with the city and private entities to build this. And just the sheer scale, I had to show it because it's extremely big. 70,000 square meters. And also here you have the social aspect integrated as well. You have the gardens, kind of like in the other one, just a bigger scale. And also, like a training center, you can read it here, restaurant, healthcare facility. So kind of make it really a communal space which fits so well with social housing. And now I'm gonna just go through quickly. I don't really need to go into detail here anyway, but I wanted to also bring you like a project from a kind of higher level tender. So this came from the European Union, right? Together with the German Development Bank, KfW. For social houses in Mexico. So I also wanted to bring something from a little bit of a warmer climate here, not just talk about the colder climates. And these were the projects that were actually built in the end. So also a very successful project, I think, in a market that also has, we always have to keep the market in mind. From that project, I understand that, for example, the MVHR system, they were extremely expensive to get there. So in this case, it wasn't economically viable. So you always have the economic side of it as well. So they opted for an exhaust air system. But here they're spread all over, right? That's also interesting. Very different climates. Mexico is a big country, very different climates. Yet they all achieved the passive house standard. Here, I don't have to go in detail. Kind of interesting though, if you look, I talked about the different climates, right? You kind of put them next to each other. You can see that, for example, the walls in the temperate climate, of course, are smaller, thinner, the insulation, I have to say. And then in the hot and dry climate, they're bigger. But interesting enough, the temperate climate uses single glazing windows and still achieve the standard. So you can, if you plan well, you can actually achieve good results in the climate like this. So I just wanted to kind of, for the more technically interested people, also include this here. And then if I have time, I would still play this, and then I'm actually done.
We find that Passive House provides a way that our new homes can tackle fuel poverty and really benefit our residents in an era of ever-increasing living costs.
It's really, really quiet because everything's so tight. You don't hear nothing outside and you don't have to pay much for heating or anything.
My windows in my old house, they would whistle with the wind if it was windy outside, where we get none of that hair. And it stays at a nice constant temperature and really good.
From this scheme specifically, we've learned that it's very good to get a contractor on board quite early on and really get their buy-in and their collaboration in delivering Passive House.
This was a fully designed scheme before it went to tender, so we were able to get an accurate price. Indeed, it came out on budget, so it was a success in financial terms as well.
It's quite warm in here in the winter without putting the heating on, and then in the summer it's quite airy as well because you can have it on high. So it's very comfortable.
From when we moved in, there's not really a difference apart from we know how to use the house better.
Passive House is a great way to engage with communities to bring them on board with a bigger regeneration solution.
Ernley Close wasn't even, no one even knew where it were. Yeah. We was offered the place and we're like, well, where's Ernley Close? We'd never even heard of it, had we? Yeah. And now we're on the map.
The one thing we can do as a landlord is cut energy bills, and energy bills in this scheme are cut 90% from what they were before. Now that puts money back into people's pockets, so and over the next 5 years in our existing stock and new stuff we'll build is going to be around passive house principles to reduce that as well as make great places to live.
Yeah, so I wanted to show this just to end it because I think it makes a lot of nice points. This is from the UK affiliate, the Passive House Trust, and they talk about stuff that I also try to include. So like having the planning for energy efficiency for Passive House from the beginning makes a lot of things easier. They talk about how the tenants appreciate having more money in their pockets for other things, which is a great aspect of social housing, I think. And then, yeah, also how the financial side of things were, like thought about. Yeah, but that's it from my side. Happy to go into the Q&A. Thank you.
Obrigada, Carla.